It was the most important day of my life. I had worked for it, sacrificed for it, and dreamed of it for years. My graduation. The day I would finally stand at the top of a long and challenging mountain. The culmination of all my hard work, late nights, and moments of doubt. But instead of feeling the pride and excitement I'd expected, I felt an overwhelming emptiness. A hollow ache that refused to leave. As I stood there in my cap and gown, I tried to steady myself. I looked around at the sea of faces, half of them strangers. Then I waited, searching for one familiar face, one face I had always hoped would be there no matter what, my parents. But they were nowhere to be seen. The seconds dragged on, becoming minutes, and the minutes stretched into what felt like hours. There was no sign of them. No text, no call. I tried to convince myself that they were just running late, that they would burst through the doors any second now, cheering for me, proud of their child. But the harsh reality sank in. They weren't coming. They hadn't come. The weight of... It hit me like a ton of bricks. The person who was supposed to be my anchor and my support, the people who had always said they would never let me down, had let me down. I could feel my heart racing, my breath becoming shallow. In the midst of my celebration, in the most defining moment of my life, my mind was consumed with the harsh realization that my parents weren't there to see it. Instead, I received a message. "Sorry, honey. We're at Jenna's party. We'll celebrate yours later." Later, the word echoed in my mind as my grip tightened around the phone. Later, there was no later. There was only now, and they had chosen to be my sister's party instead of sharing this moment with me. My sister, who was always the perfect one, always the one who got everything, was getting yet another celebration, while I stood alone in my cap and gown. I felt the sting of tears well up in my eyes, but I pushed them down. I had to maintain control. I couldn't let anyone see me break. I couldn't let them see my weakness. But as I walked off the stage, receiving my degree from a stranger, my mind continued to spiral. How could they do this to me? How could they ignore me like this, as though my accomplishments meant nothing? I knew deep down that my parents loved me, but the hollow feeling that now consumed me was something I had never expected. I had trusted them. I had believed in them. And now I was left standing in the ruins of that trust. Flashback the memories started flooding in moments from my childhood, the days when things were simpler, when I believed in the unconditional love of my parents. I remember the time my father taught me how to ride a bike. His hands steady on the back of the seat, guiding me as I wobbled, trembling, but feeling safe with him behind me. "Don't worry, I won't let you fall," he had said with that reassuring smile. And he hadn't. I'd finally learned to ride. That was the man I believed in. That was the man who told me I could be anything I wanted to be. And then there was my mother, always there, always listening. She had promised me that no matter what happened, I would never be alone. She would always be by my side, cheering for me. But today, when I needed them the most, they had chosen someone else. They had chosen Gemma's party. I tried to push the memories away. They no longer mattered. The love they had shown me before was a lie, a fleeting illusion that had evaporated into nothing. I couldn't trust those memories anymore. It hurt too much. The evening passed in a blur. I had dinner alone, scrolling through social media, watching the pictures of my sister's engagement party flood my feed. Smiles, laughter, the perfect picture of a perfect life. And there I was, sitting in the shadows in the quiet of my empty apartment, holding a glass of wine, my phone buzzing with congratulatory messages from people I barely knew. My heart felt like it was in a vice. The anger was there, simmering beneath the surface, but it was more than anger. It was betrayal, a deep, raw, unshakable betrayal. I had given my all and they had turned their backs on me. They had discarded me in favor of my sister. I wasn't enough for them. The words echoed in my mind. Later, we'll celebrate years later. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't forget it. The realization days turned into weeks, and the ache of the betrayal didn't fade. It only grew. I had tried to talk to them to let them know how much their absence had hurt me, but their excuses felt hollow. "We're so proud of you," they said. "We didn't mean to hurt you." But the damage had already been done. I began to watch them closely, searching for any sign that they recognized the weight of their mistake. But all I saw was their focus on Jenna. They called her constantly, posted about her every achievement, every milestone. My accomplishments were nothing more than an afterthought. I couldn't help but feel like I was just a footnote in their lives, a background character in a story they were too busy writing with someone else. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a simple oversight. This wasn't just a mistake. This was deliberate. Jenna had always been the perfect daughter. She'd always been the one who got the attention, the one who never had to fight for her place in the family. But why'd they so easily dismissed me? Why'd they left me behind? I started to put the pieces together. It wasn't just that they had chosen her engagement party over my graduation. It was everything. The way they had always put her first. The way they treated me like I was just ... there. I'd never been their priority. The plan begins. I spent the next few months in a daze. I went through the motions of my daily life, but I wasn't really living. The pain of being forgotten, of being pushed aside, gnawed at me. I couldn't let go of the feeling that I had been wronged, that they had taken something from me that I would never get back. And then a part of me started to shift. A small voice inside my head began to whisper, "They've wronged you. They've hurt you. It's time for them to pay." I had never thought about revenge before. I had always been the good child, the one who did everything right, the one who sacrificed my own needs for others. But now I realized I had been a fool. I had given them my loyalty, my trust, and they had thrown it all away. They had chosen to ignore me when I needed them the most. They didn't deserve my forgiveness. The idea began to take shape slowly, like a storm building on the horizon. At first, it was just a thought, a fleeting desire. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. I wasn't going to let them treat me like I was nothing. I started planning. I didn't know what the revenge would look like yet, but I knew it would be sweet. It would be something they would never forget. And as the days passed, the plan grew stronger in my mind. I would make them feel the same emptiness that had consumed me. I would show them just how much they had hurt me and how much they had lost. But more than that, I would show them that I had grown. I had become someone they can never control, never manipulate again. A heavy heart one evening, as I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset and feeling the cool breeze on my skin, I finally made the decision. This wasn't just about anger anymore. It wasn't just about the hurt. It was about proving to them that I wasn't a second choice. I wasn't their afterthought. I would make them see me. I would make them realize the mistake they had made in overlooking me and abandoning me when I needed them the most. But even as the determination surged through me, there was still a part of me that didn't want to hurt them. I loved them, despite everything. They were my parents, and I had spent my whole life trying to live up to their expectations. But now it was my turn. My heart was heavy with the weight of my decision, but there was no going back now. The plan was set, and I would make them regret the day they chose Jenna's party over my graduation. The decision had been made, and it felt final. The seed of revenge had been planted. Time passed slowly, stretching the pain of betrayal into a constant, gnawing ache. Every day felt like I was walking through a fog, my mind unable to break free from the heavy weight of disappointment. My parents hadn't just missed my graduation, they had made it clear that they didn't care. They hadn't made any real attempt to mend the rift they had created. It was as if my success didn't matter. What mattered to them was my sister's perfect life. Jenna's life was flawless in their eyes. She was the perfect daughter, the perfect person, and it seemed like they would always choose her over me. I could still remember the look on my mother's face when I had tried to talk to her about it. I had been sitting across from her in the kitchen, feeling like a stranger in my own home. I told her how much it hurt, how I'd worked my entire life to reach that point, And yet, they had chosen to be somewhere else. She didn't seem to understand. Instead, she smiled that forced smile and told me, "Honey, you know how much we love you. We didn't mean to hurt you." But the damage had already been done. The love I had always thought was unconditional now felt like a lie. Her words were empty, and I knew they were meant to ease her conscience, not mine. My father, too, had dismissed my feelings with a quick, "We'll make it up to you. You know, we didn't mean to make you feel like this." They didn't understand. They didn't even know how to apologize. Their love was conditional, dependent on what suited them at the time. It wasn't real. And that realization shattered something inside of me. Flashback, I closed my eyes, and for a brief moment I was back in the past. I could hear the laughter, feel the warmth of the family gatherings, smell the sweet scent of my mother's cooking wafting through the house. There had been a time when I thought we were a family in the truest sense of the word. My parents had always been there for me. My father had been my role model, my protector. My mother had been the one I turned to for comfort, the one who knew how to make everything better, even when I felt like the world was falling apart. I remembered one of the happiest days of my life. I was just a child sitting on the front porch of our house, the sun setting behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. My father had been teaching me how to play baseball, and my mother had been sitting in the rocking chair, knitting a sweater. Jenna was sitting beside me, laughing as I missed yet another pitch. We were a team, everything felt right. The world had been perfect, but now it was all a distant memory, a picture that had faded over time. How had everything gone wrong? How had they let me slip away so easily while they poured all their attention and love into Jenna? The anger inside me had reached a boiling point, and I couldn't keep it bottled up anymore. Every day, I saw my parents fawning over Jenna. It wasn't just the party they had chosen over my graduation, it was every moment since. My parents were consumed by her image of perfection, while I was left in the shadows, slowly withering away. I spent more time alone now. I couldn't bring myself to attend family gatherings or celebrations where they would be. Every time I saw their faces, all I could think about was the betrayal. Every conversation felt forced, every smile strained. I couldn't bear it. I couldn't pretend that everything was fine. The love I had once felt for them had turned into resentment, and resentment had slowly turned into an all-consuming rage. I began to notice things, small things, hidden behind the facade they had built. My mother's obsession with Jenna's perfect life, the way she would constantly compare me to her, as if my achievements were never enough. The way my father would spend hours talking about Jenna's engagement, praising her fiancé, while completely ignoring the sacrifices I've made to get to where I was. It wasn't just that they had abandoned me. It was that they had manipulated me all along, feeding me lies about how much they cared. A growing realization one afternoon, I was sitting at my kitchen table, scrolling through my phone when I came across a photo of my parents and Jenna at her engagement party. They were all smiling, dressed to the nines, enjoying their time together. And there I was, sitting alone, far away from their world. I stared at the picture, my fingers trembling. They had chosen her over me, but it wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a pattern, a constant reminder that I was never their priority. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my father. "We miss you, honey. Please come over. We need to talk." My heart sank. They didn't miss me. They missed the version of me they wanted me to be, the obedient, perfect child who had always been willing to forgive, always willing to let things go. But that wasn't me anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when the truth was that they had taken me for granted. I didn't respond to the message. Instead, I put my phone down and walked to the window, staring out at the world beyond. The wind was picking up, the trees swaying violently as if the earth itself was warning me. I had spent so many years trying to live up to their expectations, trying to be the perfect child they wanted me to be. But what had it gotten me? Nothing. Nothing but an empty heart and a shattered trust. A dark thought began to creep into my mind, a thought I had never allowed myself to entertain before. I had been wronged. They had hurt me in ways they would never understand. And maybe, just maybe, they needed to feel that pain. They needed to understand what it felt like to lose something they thought they could always count on. The first stirring of revenge, I couldn't believe I was even thinking this way. Revenge wasn't something I had ever considered before. But as the anger festered inside me, it started to feel more like a necessity. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and in return they had chosen someone else. They hadn't even cared enough to show up when I needed them the most. I had spent my life trying to please them, trying to earn their love and approval. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. I wasn't good enough for them. So why should I continue living in their shadow? Why should I keep striving for something that would never come? The first plan began to form in my mind, slow and methodical. It wasn't going to be immediate. It couldn't be. But it would be something that would make them feel the weight of their actions. It would be something that would make them realize that I was not the child they could ignore, the one they could manipulate. I would make them regret their decision. But even as the plan began to take shape, there was a part of me that hesitated. I had always believed in love and forgiveness. I had always been the one to put others before myself. But now in this moment, I was facing a harsh truth. I couldn't forgive them, not yet. Maybe I never would. As the idea solidified in my mind, I felt a cold sense of clarity wash over me. They had chosen to hurt me, and now it was my turn. I wasn't sure how or when it would happen, but I knew one thing: I would make them feel my pain. And when they did, when they finally realized what they had lost, it would be too late. A heart heavy with determination, the evening was quiet. As I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the empty space around me, my thoughts raced, spinning in a whirlwind of emotions. I felt a surge of anger, but beneath it, there was something else. A deep sorrow that had settled within me that would not go away. The weight of what I was about to do pressed down on my chest. It wasn't easy. None of this was easy. But I knew it was the only way. I could feel the revenge building inside me, but it wasn't about satisfaction. It wasn't about a rush of victory. No, it was about proving to myself that I was worth more than their neglect, that I deserved better than the life they had handed me. I wasn't going to be their afterthought anymore. I wasn't going to be the forgotten child. As I looked out at the city lights, my resolve hardened. The plan was in motion. It would take time, but I would make them see me. And when they did, they would regret the day they ever made me feel invisible. The decision had been made. The path was clear. But even with the resolve settling into my bones, a part of me felt hollow. Would I ever truly be able to forgive them? Or would the pain of their betrayal always linger, like a scar that couldn't be healed? The next steps would be difficult. But I was ready to make them feel what I had felt, ready to exact the justice I deserved. And as I sat there alone with my thoughts, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I stared at the blank wall in front of me, the cold weight of my decision pressing heavily on my chest. The silence of the room felt deafening, as though it was mocking me, daring me to move forward. But every part of me was screaming to turn back. I had already crossed the point of no return. There was no way back now. The decision had been made, and yet a lingering sense of doubt gnawed at my mind. Was this really the path I wanted to take? The road ahead promised nothing but pain, and part of me, a small, almost insignificant part, wanted to believe that there was still room for forgiveness, that I could somehow fix the damage between my parents and me. But deep down, I knew that forgiveness wasn't enough. Not anymore. My parents had broken me. Their betrayal, their complete disregard for the most important day of my life, had crushed everything I had once believed about love, about family. I had tried to hold on to the idea that they were still the people who had raised me, the people I'd once trusted with every part of myself. But I could no longer lie to myself. They had chosen Jenna time and time again, and I was nothing more than a footnote in their story. I clenched my fists, the harsh reality of what had been done to me pulsing through my veins. They had ignored me. Not once, but repeatedly. Their actions spoke louder than their words ever could, and every time they dismissed me in favor of my sister, it chipped away at the person I had once been. I was no longer that child, the one who sought their approval. That version of me was gone, and in its place stood someone else, someone determined to show them just how much their neglect had cost. Flashback, the memory of my graduation day still haunted me, replaying in my mind like an endless loop. I could see myself walking across that stage, the feeling of accomplishment buzzing through me. The applause from the crowd, the smile on my face, all of it should have been a moment of triumph. But all I could hear in my mind was the silence where my parents should have been. I remembered how my mother's hand had once rested on my shoulder during every important event in my life. She'd always been there, guiding me, supporting me. I had trusted her, trusted them implicitly. But on that day, there had been nothing. No hand on my shoulder, no smile of pride, no words of encouragement, just an empty space where they should have been. And then, the message. Sorry, honey, we're at Jenna's party. We'll celebrate yours later. Later, the word echoed. In my mind, mocking me. How could they not see it? How could they not understand the significance of that day to me? How could they abandon me for something as trivial as a party? The pain of realization, the truth was now undeniable. They had chosen Jenna over me. Every action, every word, every decision, they had always made her the priority. I wasn't enough for them. And worse, I had been blind to it for so long. I had spent years chasing their approval, seeking their love, while they lavished it on her without a second thought. And yet, despite all the evidence, there was still a part of me that wanted to believe that this wasn't really how things were. I wanted to believe that there was some explanation, some reason for their behavior that made sense. But every time I thought about it, the truth hit me harder. There was no excuse. There was no justification for what they had done to me. They had abandoned me at my most vulnerable moment. They had chosen to stand beside Jenna, celebrating her future while ignoring mine. It hurt more than I could put into words. It was a deep, aching wound that refused to heal. But instead of withering beneath the weight of that hurt, I felt something else building inside me, a quiet, determined rage. The growing realization, I began to watch my parents more closely, analyzing every interaction they had with me and with Jenna. It was like a veil had been lifted from my eyes, and I could see their manipulation for what it was. The way they showered her with praise, the way they ignored me unless they needed something from me, the way they had always taken her side, no matter what. I felt the rage growing inside me, but it wasn't just anger. It was something colder, something more calculated. It was a sense of injustice, the realization that I had been wronged in a way that could never be undone. And in that realization, I knew that I had to make them understand the consequences of their actions. My parents had pushed me to the brink, and now it was time for them to face the repercussions of their choices. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be painless. But I didn't care anymore. They had taken away my trust, and now I was going to take away something from them. Internal struggle and conscience, but even as my resolve hardened, there was still a part of me that struggled with the idea of revenge. I had always prided myself on being the one who took the high road, the one who forgave, who turned the other cheek. I had always believed that love and forgiveness were the keys to healing. But now those ideals felt naive. I had been a fool to believe that forgiveness could fix everything. I thought of the countless times I had forgiven my parents, the times I had let go of my own pain to keep the peace. I had always told myself that family came first, that love was enough to heal any wound. But the wound they had inflicted on me was too deep to heal with mere words. This wasn't something I could forgive easily. Not after everything they had done. The anger burned brighter now, and with it came the clarity of purpose. I was no longer the child begging for their approval. I was the adult, the one who had the power to make them feel the weight of their decisions. But I was still hesitant. I had never thought of myself as vengeful, never thought I could stoop to such depths. Revenge was messy, and it never ended well. I had seen it before in movies, read about it in books. It was a dark path, one that consumed you from the inside out. But what choice did I have? The longer I let the hurt fester, the harder it became to deny the urge to strike back. They had broken me, now I would make them feel the same way. The first step, the plan began to take shape, slowly at first, like a puzzle coming together. It wasn't going to be dramatic. I didn't need to make a spectacle out of it. No, this was going to be something quiet, something subtle. I would chip away at their perfect image, their perfect life, until they realized what they had lost. I started small. I knew the one thing my parents valued above all else was their image, the way people saw them. They cared about appearances, about how they were perceived by others, so I began to dismantle that. I made sure to expose the cracks in their world. I subtly leaked information about Gemma's fiancé, about his infidelity, about the lies he had told. I made sure the people closest to them knew. I didn't do it all at once. It was slow, calculated. Every time I saw them, I could feel their tension, their growing unease. I watched as they tried to salvage their relationship with Jenna, desperate. To keep up appearances, to maintain the illusion of their perfect family. But the cracks were showing, and soon they would begin to fall apart. The weight of the decision, even as I carried out my plan, I could feel the weight of my actions. I wasn't the same person I had been before. I had crossed a line, and though I had justified it to myself, I couldn't ignore the nagging voice in the back of my mind. What was I becoming? It wasn't just about hurting them anymore. It was about something deeper. It was about proving to myself that I was no longer their pawn, no longer someone they could control with their love and attention. I was my own person now, and I would no longer be silenced or ignored. But the closer I came to achieving my goal, the more conflicted I became. The revenge didn't feel as satisfying as I had imagined. Every small victory, every step I took toward making them pay felt hollow. I was getting what I wanted, but I didn't feel the sense of triumph I had hoped for. Instead, I felt empty. The emotional turmoil was taking its toll. I had wanted them to understand the pain they had caused me, but now I wondered if I had truly thought this through. Was this really the answer? Would it be enough? As the days passed, I could see the damage I was causing my parents growing. More distant from me, their lives unraveling in subtle ways. But at the same time, I saw my own heart hardening, growing colder with every step I took. Was this what I had wanted? A moment of reflection one night, as I sat alone in my apartment, the weight of my decisions crashing down on me, I realized something. Revenge was never as simple as it seemed. It wasn't a clean cut. It wasn't a moment of satisfaction followed by peace. It was a slow, painful unraveling, a wound that would never fully heal. I could make them regret everything. I could destroy their perfect image, but at what cost? The plan was already in motion, and I couldn't turn back now. But as I sat there staring at the blank wall before me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was a path that would lead me to a place I might never return from. I was about to make them feel the pain they had caused me, but in the process, I was beginning to lose a part of myself. And that was the most painful realization of all. The decision had been made. The plan was set. But as I prepared to carry it out, I couldn't escape the nagging feeling that the cost of my revenge was far greater than I had ever imagined.